Hello, this is Dr. Josh Matthews, and today I'm going to give you my top 10 list of the movies from the 2010s. The decade of the 2010s is ending. It's, I think, been a very good decade for movies. That is, if you watch good movies. I mean, there's a lot of terrible movies out there, but avoid those. I'm seeing top 10 lists of the decade come out. Now, it's December 2019, so there might still be a movie coming out in the next month that ought to be on this list. Nevertheless, I'm going to do this a month before the decade ends because of all the lists I'm seeing. Now, a lot of these lists are interesting and good. They have some good movies on them, but when I looked at them, they're almost all the same. I mean, I'm seeing Mad Max Fury Road appear at the top of these lists. Why is that the one action movie when there's been a bunch of excellent action movies in this decade? And then I'm seeing a lot of love for Paul Thomas Anderson. Although he's a good shot maker, I just don't get his stories, and I don't think they connect to most of the lives of the people I know. So I'll tell you this, my list is different from a lot of the critics' lists. Now, some of the movies on this list are similar to theirs, but some you'll never see on the major critics list. Part of that is because I'm a Midwestern American. Part of that is because of my biases and my perspective. I really enjoy philosophical and theological movies, and I want my movies to connect with my everyday life and the lives of the people I know. Now, there's one more dirty secret about top 10 lists. Nobody has a clue what really are the top 10 of the decade. I mean, there's been 150,000 movies released in the 2010s. Nobody has time to watch even 5% of these. So a list like this is just for fun and just to spread information to you. Also, I'd love to hear your comments about the movies I didn't put in the list, what you think should go on the list, and what movies I might have even missed and didn't watch this decade. As well, you need to stay tuned because my number one guaranteed will be on nobody's top 10 list, but I'm putting it number one. By the way, I also have an article on my website. I put the top 15 movies in that article. The list order is going to be different in that article from this video, and that's because I really don't even care what order things are in. I just want to bunch these movies together and praise them and say they're really good, you should go check them out. My number 10 movie, I'm going to start with a movie almost no one praised, almost no one saw. It's by Terry Gilliam. It's called The Zero Theorem. This is an exceptionally well written movie. It's thoughtful, it's philosophical. It's about a character who's named after the writer of the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible, and he lives in an abandoned church that he bought. It's one of the greatest houses, I think, in movie history. And the movie is about surveillance and tech workers and wanting a purpose in life and trying to find your own identity. It's about corporations dominating our lives. It's about what the universe is about. Or is there any purpose to the universe? So I think Terry Gilliam had a great decade, even though he's in his 70s, but he's still really good. I mean, The Man with Don Quixote was quite a good movie. I just really like The Zero Theorem. I'm putting it at number 10. My number 9 is a movie by a master director, Mike Leigh. I think this movie will bear rewatching over and over again over the course of a decade. I also think you'll have multiple interpretations of this movie. Just watch it with a group of people, and you'll see them all see this movie very differently. It's the movie Another Year. This is a thoughtful movie about friendships in England between middle and lower class people, people who are married, people who are not married, lifelong friends, family members. And each character in this movie is highly complex. There's no doubt that you will identify with one or more of the characters in here and sort of take their side as you go through this movie. However, you can see this movie from any character's perspective, and that the movie watches very differently no matter whose character you sort of focus on and pay attention to throughout the movie. So I highly recommend Another Year at number 9 by Mike Leigh.
I don't cook.
Other people cook for you, though.
Who?
You get takeaways, don't you?
That doesn't count. Everybody gets takeaways. You've built whole motorways, Tom. How environmentally friendly is that?
Exactly.
Yes, more cars, more cars. At least I'm buying an old car.
Recycled?
Yeah.
Yet we're constantly told that the measure of a thriving economy is the sale of new cars.
Yes, but Tom, if I buy a new car, that's another car.
You're absolutely right, Mary.
Number 8 is a movie I wrote about on my website. I really suggest you go read my essay because I think it's pretty good. It's on why fake news arose as a phenomenon in this decade, even though really fake news has been around forever. The movie Nightcrawler, and Jake Gyllenhaal in this movie plays a psychopathic video maker who tries to break into the Los Angeles TV news business. He tries to become what they call a Nightcrawler. That is a camera worker who records video of real events, say accidents or murders, and he tries to sell that footage to TV stations. The movie is about how journalism really is a business and how it's a sensationalistic business at its core. I think this movie connects with so many real life events and real life problems that I'm putting it at number 8 on my list.
What is going on? We're leaving. What? What's in there? What's going on? What happened in there? You should have walked in and looked, Rick. If you're curious, that's what I'm paying you to do. You need to show initiative. There is no better way to achieve job security than by making yourself an indispensable employee. I heard gunshots. All the more reason you might have helped me. You might have learned a new skill that made you more useful and put us on a track toward growth.
Number 7 is really a movie I love a lot and I think is one that everybody should watch. It's called Of Gods and Men. This is about French Catholic monks in a monastery in North Africa. The opening of this movie creates a wonderful environment as far as the monastery goes. These monks are brothers, they're friends, and they live in a silent atmosphere that is palpable. You really get a sense of what a monastery is, or at least might be, in this movie. Now, the monks are set apart from society, but they're living in the Muslim-dominated society, and they have to deal with political problems that they can't control. That's all I really need to say about this movie, but what's really interesting about it is, one, it's directed by an atheist who makes the monks honorable and lovable. You can even believe a Christian could have made this movie, given the way that the monks are depicted. Second, this movie connects with so many real-world events, including the persecution of Christians throughout the world. Now, part of that is a problem of international wars, but part of that is a problem of the Christians in these countries where they're minorities. So I think Of Gods and Men really shows us something interesting, and that's why it's on my list. Number 6 is a movie I've loved a lot because I live only about 2 hours from where this movie was mostly shot. It's Nebraska by Alexander Payne. This movie is in black and white. It's one of the few movies that are made about rural Midwestern Americans or Great Plains Americans. I mean, there's millions and millions of us, and yet Hollywood basically ignores us. Alexander Payne's from Omaha. He's the director. The movie's in black and white. It's about a man who grew up in a small Midwestern Nebraska town, comes back to it as a 75-year-old. He's semi-senile. He thinks he's won $1 million in a sweepstakes contest that is obviously a false or a lie. And it's about him coming home and revisiting his hometown, about his son who tries to deal with his aging and semi-senile father, and it's about Nebraska. I mean, the movie is given the title of a state, and it's obviously about the whole Midwestern American place. I wrote an essay on this movie. I put it in the notes below. Go check it out if you want. I analyzed some of the images and scenes for the movie, and I think it's a pretty good essay, so take a look, but Nebraska is my number 6 choice.
Oh, okay. Dad, I found it. Here it is. Oh, wait. This isn't yours. I was kidding. Here.
These ain't mine.
Of course they're yours. Whose else is it gonna be? Here, see if
They're
it
not my
fits.
teeth.
They have to be.
I ought to know my own teeth. Of course they're my teeth. Don't be a moron.
Number 5, to continue a theme, is another movie I had to write about because I find this fascinating. It's about the social phenomenon of smartphones and even computers and AI and algorithms in our lives. It's the movie Her by Spike Jonze.
Hi,
Hi. How you doing?
I'm well. How's everything with you?
Pretty good, actually. It's really nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you too.
This is such a great movie. First of all, a lot of people watch this movie as a romance between a human, the character played by Joaquin Phoenix, and a smartphone operating system. The phone is voiced by Scarlett Johansson, what is could be the best voiceover of the decade. She sounds so realistic. She makes the operating system so interesting and cute and fascinating and human that you start to believe, like the main character in this movie does, that she's alive. So you could watch this movie as a romance, but I happen to watch this movie as a satire of the main character and the society that he's in. I mean, this phone is the ultimate piece of surveillance tech. It knows everything about him. It's watching his every move. It's going through all of his emails and writing messages for him. It says it falls in love with him, but of course there's a question later in the movie, can it fall in love with more than one human at a time? I thought this movie was a parody of Apple and of big tech corporations who bring us devices, and they claim that these devices are going to make us whole and complete human beings. But I acknowledge there's other ways to watch this movie, so I find this movie important on the subject of smartphones, which came into our lives this decade, and the rise of AI and algorithms. Now, you're on YouTube, and the algorithm is kind of controlling or telling you what to watch. How far off are we really from the Samantha character, the AI operating system that seems alive, in Her? Number 4 is a cop-out. I'm going to put up every movie by the Iranian director Asghar Farhadi. I think he's one of the best directors working these days, and a lot of critics put his 2011 movie A Separation in their top 10 or top 20 of the decade. That movie is definitely a good choice. I think it has cross-cultural and universal appeal. A Separation is about an Iranian couple who divorces and the problems and consequences of divorce. On the other hand, I liked his movies The Past and The Salesman even a lot better than A Separation. I thought The Past was a fabulous movie, but because I'm wishy-washy here, I'm not sure which one of these 3 movies to choose. Asghar Farhadi only makes great movies. Alright, my number 3 is a personal choice, but it connects with all the people I know. This is sort of a cop-out too. I'm going to put 2 movies here by Christopher Nolan, who in my world is the king of the box office. Everybody of every age flocks to Christopher Nolan movies when they come out. Why? I mean, some of his movies, I don't even know what they're about. What in the world is Inception about? I don't know, but it's entertaining, and most people I know really like it. I think the 2 movies that interest me the most are Dunkirk and The Dark Knight Returns. Now, I'm putting The Dark Knight Returns up here because I really love it, and maybe that's because I'm a middle-aged dude who understands sort of the psychological problems, at least a little bit, of the Bruce Wayne character in this movie. I think this movie is much more complex than, say, Mad Max Fury Road. It's also the completion of a trilogy that's more than its individual parts. I mean, The Dark Knight is good, Batman Begins is fine, and The Dark Knight Returns is really good, but the whole Dark Knight trilogy deserves to be watched as a whole, as a statement on the 2000s, at least a statement about the Western world, and maybe even just about the United States of America.
Open fire.
Dunkirk is really interesting to me, really well edited. The score by Hans Zimmer is really great. It brings up the political question of Brexit and of nationalism in general. I mean, yeah, this is a movie about World War II and English soldiers retreating during World War II to avoid destruction by the Nazis, who were overrunning France, but it's really about England coming back home and the English soldiers sort of defending their own territory, which is in a weird indirect way about Brexit. And it's in a weird indirect thing about the political movements in our time, nationalism. Whatever you think about them, Dunkirk is sort of a statement about that. It's really well constructed. It's one of Nolan's probably best movies of all, so I highly recommend it. This is my number 3, 2 choices, Dark Knight Returns and Dunkirk. My number 2 choice is caving into critical praise. I watched this movie. It was one of the only times where I've seen people steadily walk out of the movie theater. Nevertheless, my wife and I were both haunted by it, amazed by it. It's The Tree of Life by Terrence Malick. I'm seeing The Tree of Life show up in the top 5, even at number 1 in the critics list of the best of the 2010s. I think it's a safe choice, actually. I mean, it's a really fascinating movie. Even if you have no idea what the heck's going on, the images are poetic and haunting, the music is beautiful, the images and the music sync really well together. It seems to be a universal statement about everything, but it's set in a particular location. Well, at least a half of it's set in a particular location in the 1950s in Texas. I think this movie is Malick's statement in response to movie history in general. I mean, for one thing, he's got Stanley Kubrick in his sights and sort of the bleakness and the false hopes of 2001: A Space Odyssey. I don't think you can ignore Malik's religious faith here. He's a Christian after all, and it comes through, I think, really clearly in the movie, beginning with the 3 flashing lights at the beginning, the 3 at the end, which I think represent the Trinity. Now that's all I'll say about it. I don't think it's the best Malik movie that he's made, but The Tree of Life is my number 2 because I think people will continue to watch it and filmmakers will be inspired by it for several decades to come. And now my odd number 1 choice that you won't find in the top 10 list of any critic. The reason why I'm putting this at number 1 is because of its world historical value. Just the fact that this movie exists is important, and I think people are going to be watching this for centuries, maybe even millennia. I'm going to say that this movie is going to last as long as the Homeric epics. That's not because of its storytelling, that's because it encapsulates cave paintings in southwest France. This is Werner Herzog's documentary, The Cave of Forgotten Dreams. Now, first of all, these cave paintings will never be open to anybody except experts who are going to study them. There will never be tourism here, so the only way you can access these cave paintings is through media like the documentary Cave of Forgotten Dreams. Second, Herzog shows us the amazing, stunning artistic quality, the aesthetic excellence of these cave paintings. He makes it seem as if these paintings are the greatest, among the greatest art ever made. It's not just about the pictures you see either. I mean, you can look up images of these on the internet, but you need to see them in their 3D environment with the proper lighting of the cave. And then Herzog argues these cave paintings are even more alive and even more stunning than just the flat 2-dimensional images you can find on a Google search of them. So because Herzog just recorded these paintings for us with his camera, edited them together into this magical movie that is watchable for people of any age or anybody around the world, I think this movie deserves to be number 1 because of its universal value and its historical importance to humanity. Alright, that's my top 10 list for the 2010s. There's no doubt I missed thousands of movies, just as every critic in the world missed many, many, many good and great movies. Great movies are being made all around the world. They're being released in theaters, they're being released online, they may even be on YouTube for all I know. So it's up to you and me as movie watchers to send out the information, hey, what's a good movie? And you should watch this movie because. If you can answer the question, you should watch this movie because, I'd love to hear about your recommendations. So please subscribe to my channel to get more great information, great content on movies. I'd appreciate it if you liked this video. And thanks for subscribing, thanks for watching, have a great day.